GPS. In the 21st century, it's become a part of our daily lives. It's how we get from point A to point B. It's how we find a new restaurant and keep track of where we've been and where we're going. There was once a time when we could navigate an excursion with a map and compass, but today, for many of us, without GPS, we'd be lost, and without the United States Air Force, we wouldn't have GPS. It's widely known that the Air Force flies F-16s, C-130s, and B-2 bombers around the globe, but many people are unaware that the Air Force also flies another fleet of vehicles at higher elevations than these planes could ever go, so high, in fact, that they're outside of the Earth's atmosphere. They're not vehicles in the traditional sense, there's no pilot inside, and their mission is not to transport goods or attack an enemy. Their job is to transmit information, and when it comes to warfighting capabilities, information is king.
You want to get the higher ground always, and that's been since forever in battle, obviously. So space is the next highest ground above air.
Whether you're a Marine in Afghanistan trying to be on the top of the hilltop to have position over your enemy, or you're like us and you're trying to have the satellites up in space to have a viewpoint of the Earth, space is the most important forefront.
40 years ago, when space was pretty new and Sputnik was the only thing up there, it didn't seem like it was going to be as much of a big deal as it is.
In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first satellite, known as Sputnik, into space. Scientists at Johns Hopkins University noticed that the frequency of radio signals transmitted by Sputnik increased as it approached and decreased as it moved away. This was caused by the Doppler effect, which is what alters the sound of a car as it speeds by. The scientists had an idea that they could track their distance from a satellite by measuring the frequency of the radio signals. In the 1960s, the United States military began working on the Global Positioning System, which was based on this concept. It became fully operational in 1995 and today is controlled by a small group of airmen from a tiny room in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
It's kind of funny listening to how people think GPS works. My mom thinks I send, commands to her telling her to turn left and turn right, which is really not what happens. And it is kind of amazing. You have 19-year-olds who are commanding multi-million-dollar satellites, but it speaks to our training and it speaks to our operations here is that we ensure that our guys can actually take care of the satellites and the constellation.
People that aren't associated with GPS don't really think of it as a satellite constellation. They think of it as maybe something that's ground-based or built into their phone. And they don't understand that there are 40 satellites orbiting the Earth that provide these signals.
Of these 40 satellites, around 30 are always active, and there are at least 4 satellites visible no matter where you are on the planet. Each satellite transmits information about its position and current time at regular intervals, and your GPS receiver uses this data to calculate how far away each satellite is from you, thus determining your exact location within a few meters.
We advertise less than 3 meters. We do get better than that. We are usually a lot better than that.
I think there's an immense amount of pride. Just being able to wake up and say, I support 4 billion devices, it's kind of a big deal.
Where else can you tell your mom, your grandma, I'm helping 4 billion people every day, and I'm operating satellites that are 20,000 kilometers away from Earth.
We have signal over everywhere. And I know people may say oh, well, my GPS receiver doesn't get signal. That's more on the receiver's end.
The signal that we provide to civilians is awesome. It's just as good as the military signal.
I've heard a number of different misconceptions about GPS. One, let me just clear up the myth that it doesn't matter how close you are to a military facility, that is not going to improve your GPS signal.
Another is that GPS can track you. It cannot.
We have people, contacting our user ops section be like, my GPS doesn't work, and it's like, that's your receiver. The GPS signal is pristine, I promise you. It's accurate.
The GPS mission at Schriever Air Force Base is one of several jobs that airmen in this career field can do. They all have different reasons for becoming a part of this highly classified vocation, but now that they're in it, many would say that their contribution to the Air Force, the country, and the planet is unparalleled.
When I decided to join the Air Force, I wanted to do a cool job. I didn't want to just go in open and say, give me whatever job you have available.
The day I talked to the recruiter for the first time, my question was, how do I become a pilot? And he said, oh, it's really hard. Here's these jobs.
My first career field was AC-130U gunner, and I had significant air sickness in that training. The air sickness was very detrimental to my health, and I was also given an opportunity to do another profession and do it well. The Air Force gave me that opportunity, and I got space operator.
So space systems operations, it's one of those things that you read it and you're like, that sounds awesome. You don't really know what it is. I put it down on my dream sheet. I wasn't expecting to become a space systems operator.
When I went in to see a recruiter, I asked him, like, what can I do with space? He showed me this job, and he said that the odds of me getting it were pretty slim. They weren't letting too many people in, and I mean, I love what I do every day, and I don't really know too many people that do what we do that don't love it.
Like a foreign signal. I think it's pretty cool. That's just that I'm dealing with something that's a lot bigger than myself.
When you work in a building all day long and there's no natural sunlight, there's no windows, there's nowhere to go, you really get to know each other, and that helps build some really strong relationships.
Everybody is aware of the impact that we make every day. I think that kind of brings us together.
Only an hour down the road from Schriever, airmen at Buckley Air Force Base also perform a mission that affects billions of people around the globe. Unlike GPS, however, their mission is much less known, but no less important.
When I found out I got the job, I tried looking it up, and we work in a world of classified information, so it was really hard to find out what we do as space systems operators. And part of that is because the mission's different everywhere. If I were to work for GPS or for the Weather Service, I would have a completely different mission. Here I work missile warning, and I support a warfighter mission.
Space operators at Buckley Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado spend night and day watching computer monitors, but they're not checking their email or making Excel spreadsheets. These highly skilled airmen are constantly searching the entire globe for heat.
What our satellites do is they're kind of like telescopes, and you can see the amount of heat that's coming off one of these missiles and be able to differentiate them from, say, the exhaust coming out of your car.
We report on every missile that we see to troops downrange and to civilians downrange so they can duck and cover.
Missiles are proliferating around the world. It is a significant threat to the United States, our allies, and our forces. And missiles are getting more accurate, more lethal than they ever have before.
The Defense Support Program, or DSP, has been in use for over 40 years, and the Air Force continues to squeeze more and more information from satellites that have been in orbit for longer than some of the young space operators controlling them have been alive.
These spacecraft have a design life of 5 years, but now some are old enough to drink. They're, it's 23 plus years old. And these have been providing, no kidding, data and been doing active work for the United States Air Force for decades.
We have the DSP satellite here, but if you looked at our follow-on Block 10, our SBIRS GEO satellite, it looks nothing like this. The Block 10 guidance is so different and so new that we're sort of venturing into an area that really is new to the United States military and the DoD as a whole.
The old system was very basic, and our new systems will be much more capable.
They can see a lot more, they can do a lot more.
With the onset of our new capabilities, we are able to see dimmer objects, so it doesn't require the heat that is normally associated with the tail end of a missile. We are in the midst of a once-in-a-generation time frame within this mission set. Moving forward, OPIR, overhead persistent infrared, will become more and more common, and I'm convinced that across the Air Force, people will use that as much as they use the term GPS.
You see the airmen that are coming in now, and it truly is exciting to watch them. I mean, some of our 18, 19, 20-year-old airmen are some of the smartest people I have ever seen. And they just get it, and they're just excited, and they want to make a contribution, and they're pushing the mission faster and farther than we've ever done before.